All this coming now amid reports the U.S. is weighing a plan that would deploy 120,000 U.S. troops in the Middle East if Iran attacked American forces. It's a major headline. Is there anything to it? John Hanna, senior counselor at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and a former national security advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney. Nice to see you, John. And
Thank you, Bill.
To you. Why do we know of this report, do you think?
Well, the report says that there were half a dozen people in the national security apparatus talking to the New York Times anonymously. So my guess is there are people in the administration somehow worried that the United States is rushing into a military conflict against the Iranians.
How real is that?
Listen, there are escalating tensions in the Gulf against a sworn adversary of the United States that has lots of American blood on its hands. It is only prudent, I think, for the administration in that circumstance to be asking the Pentagon for military planning contingency. The Pentagon produces these all the time. It is the responsible thing to do.
I thought it's standard operating procedure for the Pentagon to have military plans drawn up, whether it's here, there, or somewhere else.
Particularly for Iran, particularly for, the Iranians have...
The question would come back then, why do we know about this?
Because people are leaking. I think they're trying to undermine the president on his Iran policy, frankly.
How serious do you think it is right now? I think a lot of people looking at this think it just came out of nowhere. Did it?
No, we've clearly got escalating tensions here. The administration is really putting the economic screws to the Iranians. That economy is now on its knees. There's every reason that the Iranians are going to look for their own leverage and look to strike back against the United States. We've got to expect that. We've got to be ready to deter it.
Mike Pompeo, as we speak here, he's speaking in Russia. There will be a meeting, we are told, with Vladimir Putin. What comes up? Or what doesn't come up?
What doesn't come up? It is a long list of issues that the United States has got with the Russians. It's a question of priorities right now. And I think Iran and the possibility of a clash with Iran in the Gulf has got to be very near the top. And I think Pompeo's got to be telling Putin, you do not want the United States going to war against one of your partners in the Middle East, Iran. So you better be sending a very tough message to the Iranians. Don't test America.
Is it just words from Putin that goes to Tehran, or could he do something else?
There's lots he could do with the Iranians. My guess is he's got very little incentive to actually help the Americans here, just as he doesn't have much incentive to help us in places like Syria or Venezuela at the moment.
What do you think Putin's doing with North Korea right now? There's been a lot of speculation that meeting with Chairman Kim a week and a half ago gave Chairman Kim, encouragement. What do you think about that?
I think no doubt that both Putin and the Chinese are giving Kim a diplomatic lifeline right now to try and test the United States and see whether they can change the Trump administration's negotiating posture with Kim.
Wow. Here's what the Korean news agency came out. North Korean state media said this. The United States should carefully consider what kind of consequences their daylight robbery could bring. That's in reference to a cargo ship that was seized on the oceans. To the political situation, should send back our vessel without hesitation.
Yeah, listen, Kim has now been threatening the United States for several months since that collapse of the Hanoi summit back in February. He wants a relaxation of American sanctions, and he is now starting to test the United States to see what levels of pain he can inflict upon us, including these testing now of new ballistic missiles.
There are those who still consider negotiations and are encouraging that, including the Vice President, Mike Pence, who said this just last evening, I believe.
But President Trump really believes that Chairman Kim wants to negotiate. He may not want to negotiate right now, but he believes that the time will come when we'll have an opportunity to sit down with North Korea again, and when they embrace a future without nuclear weapons.
That was Shannon Bream, Fox News at Night last evening. What do you think of that comment about negotiating?
Well, I think it's absolutely right that the administration has got to maintain some kind of diplomatic channel with the North Koreans. At the same time, we've got to enforce those sanctions until there's a break and the North Koreans are willing to talk seriously about denuclearization.
His point about sitting down, will that happen again?
I think it will. I think this is all a bunch of signaling that's going on, and I think we both have an incentive to get back to the table and talk seriously about denuclearization.
Great to see you, John Hamm.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you
Thank
for being
you.
here in studio in New York too.
Sure
Thanks.
thing. Thank you.